For as long as he could remember, Ethan believed he was truly part of the family. Raised by David, the only father he ever knew, and embraced, or so he thought, by David's parents, Ethan never questioned his place. That changed one quiet November afternoon when a seemingly innocent conversation shattered his world. As the truth about how his grandparents really saw him unraveled, Ethan found himself caught between loyalty, pain, and the desire to protect his heart. Now, with graduation approaching, a decision must be made, one that could either restore broken ties or seal the distance forever. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to share a very personal and heartfelt story, one about family, about the pain of being excluded simply because I wasn't a biological grandchild, and the journey of coming to terms with that reality. If you've ever felt like you were left out of a place you thought was home, then this video is for you. I hope what I share will touch your heart, help you feel seen, comforted, and give you strength as you walk through your own journey. November. The early chill of winter had just crept in through the window when a crack quietly began to form in my family. Not one that everyone could see, but deep enough to shatter something inside me. That Sunday afternoon felt like any other. My family had gathered for dinner. The atmosphere was cozy, pots clanged in the kitchen. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air. And my little brother, just 11 years old, laughed freely, completely unaware. My parents sat with my dad's parents on the sofa, sipping hot tea. I was helping my mum set the table, but my ears were tuned into the conversation. Nobody had mentioned money or college. The topic hadn't come up at all. And then, almost as if they had rehearsed it beforehand, my grandparents dropped the news out of nowhere. "We've decided to start a college fund for the boy," my grandma said, patting my little brother on the shoulder. I turned my head, thinking I must have misheard. My mum paused, lowering the dish she was holding, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. My dad looked down at the floor and said nothing. "You mean for Ben?" my mom asked, still unsure. "Yes," Grandpa chimed in. "He needs to be prepared. Education isn't cheap these days. We just want to make sure he doesn't have to worry about paying for college." I didn't know what I felt at that moment: confusion, surprise, or maybe just rejection. But I remember my mom's face clearly, a mix of disbelief and hesitation. The room went quiet for a few seconds before she asked, "And what about Ethan?" She glanced over at me. "Did you ever think of starting a fund for him too?" I stared directly at them, waiting for their response, though something inside already knew what was coming. Grandma looked briefly at Grandpa, then back at my mom, and said, without hesitation, "He's not our biological grandson." I heard every word. Not our biological grandson. Those 4 words slammed into me like a cold wave. "We care about him," she continued. "But he's not blood. He'll get something else. But you can't expect us to take care of everyone." I stood still. It felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. All my life, I had believed I was part of this family. My dad had adopted me when I was 5, after dating my mum for a few years. My biological father, a man I never truly knew, had passed away when I was 3. My mum told me he wasn't a good person, constantly in and out of jail. The man I called Dad is the only father I've ever known, and I had always assumed his parents saw me as their grandchild. But clearly, they never did. My mum looked stunned. Hurt flashed in her eyes, followed by a quiet anger. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Ethan is your son's child. He is your grandson." "We're not trying to be rude," Grandpa replied calmly. "We're just doing what we think is right for our family." Family. I thought I was part of that family. No one said anything else. The air felt heavy. My little brother, oblivious to it all, asked, "Why is everyone so quiet?" But no one answered. I stepped outside, heart pounding, my thoughts racing. That night, everything changed. In one unexpected moment, I realized that sometimes Biology is all that matters, at least to some people. And no matter how many dinners we shared, how many birthday calls I received, or how many hugs they gave me when I was younger, I was never truly their grandson. And from that moment on, I couldn't see them the same way again. Not because of the money, but because they had never really seen me as family. I don't clearly remember how I walked out of the house that day after the conversation. I just remember that the air suddenly turned heavy, suffocating, like everything around me was collapsing and I couldn't breathe. The feeling of being excluded wasn't like getting punched in the face, it was more like a slow, slicing knife. It hurt, it lingered, and it cut deep. What hurt wasn't that they didn't start a college fund for me. I had never expected money from them, never asked. What broke me was realizing that, for all these years, I had only been a quiet guest in my own family, someone standing on the sidelines, thinking he was loved, when in reality, he was merely tolerated. I had called them Grandma and Grandpa since I was little. I used to get excited every holiday when we visited them. I still remember my 8th birthday, Grandpa built me a wooden toy car. I slept with it for a whole week. Grandma used to compliment my handwriting and ask me to write greeting cards for her whenever there was a family event. Those memories, once so precious, now felt distant, like a movie I once believed was real, only to learn later it was just acting. I grew up without my biological father. My mum raised me alone until she met my dad, the man I now call Dad, who I always saw as a hero, the one who gave me the gift of a real family. He adopted me when I was 5. I remember my mum crying that day, though I didn't really understand what it meant at the time. I only knew that from then on, I could call him Dad, and no one would stop me. And ever since, I had never thought of myself as a stepchild. I was his son. I was Ben's older brother. I was a part of what I believed to be a complete, loving family. I truly believed that. Until the day my grandparents said I wasn't their real grandson. Since then, I began replaying memories in my mind. Had I missed the signs? Had they always treated me differently, and I just didn't see it? I remembered how Ben always got longer hugs, how his gifts were always new, while mine often felt reused or second-hand. At the time, I brushed it off, telling myself, he's younger, he needs more attention. But now, I wonder, was I just lying to myself? I don't want to hate them. I don't want to become someone who carries bitterness. But the truth is, ever since that day, I haven't been able to look at them the same. Not because I want revenge or pity, but because I finally saw the truth, and it broke something inside me. They apologized, or rather, they were made to apologize. My dad talked to them, and afterward they said sorry. But their apology felt hollow. No eye contact, no warmth. Just words said out of obligation, not remorse. And that, to me, wasn't an apology. It was damage control. So, I started to pull away. No more polite hugs. No more casual conversations. I created distance not to punish them, but to protect myself. I couldn't keep pretending there was love when all I saw now was a performance. My mum understood. She was the first to come to me that night and gently place her hand on my shoulder. I know you're hurting, she said. And I'm hurting too. She was right. I was hurt. Deeply. But more than that, I was disappointed. My dad, he was caught in the middle. He didn't say much about what had happened, but I could see the tension in his eyes. He was torn between his loyalty to the parents who raised him and the love he had for me. I feel for him. I know he didn't agree with what they said, and I believe he loves me. But even his love couldn't undo the pain of being told openly that I never belonged. I still call him Dad. I still thank him for everything. But here's something both he and I have to face. While he chose me as his son, the people who raised him never chose me as their grandson. Wounds like these don't heal easily, not when they come from the people you once trusted most. I never wanted anything from them but to be seen. Not with gifts, not with money. just with love, the kind that doesn't need blood to be real. But now I understand. Maybe that love never truly existed. After all the simmering pain and bitter disappointment, the only thing I truly hoped for from my grandparents was a genuine apology. A real embrace, a sincere look of remorse, a heartfelt admission that they had been wrong, not because my dad pressured them, but because they actually regretted their words. Sadly, that never came. The apology arrived, just as I expected, a few days after the argument. My mom told me that my dad had spoken with them, that he didn't want me to carry this burden of hurt any longer. I understood he was trying to fix things, and I knew it pained him to see me drift apart from his parents. But unfortunately, his effort didn't bring the healing he hoped for. When my grandparents came to our house to talk, I could feel the stiffness from the moment they walked in. They didn't look me in the eyes. My grandfather mumbled a few vague words, something like, "We're sorry if you felt hurt." And my grandmother added, "We didn't mean to upset you." There was no mention of what they had actually said, that I wasn't their real grandson, and no true ownership of the damage they had done. They didn't say, "We were wrong." They said, "You misunderstood." They didn't say, "We'll do better." They said, "Don't let this small thing ruin the family bond." Those words, instead of soothing me, only deepened the distance I felt. I nodded just to end the conversation, but inside, my heart closed off. I didn't feel relieved by their apology. I felt empty. It was like the trust I had placed in them had been drained completely, leaving behind only a fractured relationship patched together with artificial words. I began to change how I acted around them. No more cheerful greetings on holidays. No more phone calls or messages. When they came to visit, I was still polite but distant. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it to protect myself from being hurt again. My mom supported me. She didn't push me to forgive. She told me I had every right to feel what I felt, and I had the right to set boundaries with people who didn't value me. But my dad, he was different. He started getting concerned, and I could see the worry in his eyes every time I went cold around his parents. One night, he gently said, "I know you're upset, but they're still your grandparents. They still care. They want to see you graduate." I interrupted, "But I don't want them there. I don't want to share one of the most important moments of my life with people who once denied I was part of this family." He went silent. No argument, no pressure, but I knew he was hurting. Then Christmas came, and the family gathered again. My grandparents were invited. Of course, for my dad's sake, I knew. I tried to be civil, to keep the peace, but the tension was thick. When my dad brought up my upcoming senior photos, my grandparents lit up with excitement. "Oh, we're so excited to see you graduate. We can't believe how grown up you've gotten." I turned away. My chest tightened. Just weeks ago, they had said I wasn't really their grandson, and now, they wanted to play the role of proud grandparents? I looked at them directly for the first time in weeks and said, "You're not coming to my graduation. I don't want you there." The room fell silent. My dad stared at me, stunned. My mom placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, trying to ease the moment. My grandparents looked shocked, as if they hadn't seen this coming at all. Grandpa asked, "Why would you say that? We already apologized." I replied calmly, "Because you told me I wasn't your real grandson, so I don't see why you'd want to attend my graduation when, according to you, we're not truly family." My grandmother's eyes welled up with tears. My grandfather looked furious, but I stood firm. I didn't shout. I didn't lash out. I simply stated the truth, the one they needed to hear, whether they liked it or not. I haven't seen them since that day. My dad later told me they were hurt by what I said, and that I should apologize, tell them I didn't mean it. But I didn't. I meant every word. I don't hate them, but I can't pretend to love them either. What I've come to learn is this: family isn't just about blood. It's about love, acceptance, and showing up when it matters. If those things are missing, even people who share your last name can feel like strangers. Graduation day was drawing near. I should have felt excited, proud, counting down the days to walk across that stage. But instead, I felt hollow, conflicted, and tired. Not because of schoolwork or the pressure of the future, but for one reason only. I didn't know how to feel about my dad. I love my dad. No one can deny that. He's the only father I've ever known. He adopted me when I was 5, raised me with patience and love, taught me how to ride a bike, took me to school, and was the first person to hug me when I cried after a bad grade. To me, he wasn't a stepfather. He was simply Dad. But for the first time in my life, I felt a quiet distance growing between us. Not because he did something wrong, but because I knew he was caught in the middle between me, his son whom he had chosen to love and raise, and his parents who made me feel like I didn't truly belong. Since Christmas, something in the house had changed. My mum continued to support me, but she gently suggested I should try to soften up, not for the grandparents, but for my dad's sake. She could see it was weighing on him. My dad became quieter, more thoughtful. He never pushed me to change my mind, never told me I was wrong, but I could feel that he hoped I would. One night, just the two of us sitting in my room, he spoke up. "You might not want to hear this, but I need to say it," he said. "I know my parents were wrong. I don't deny that. But they're still my parents. I grew up in their home. They gave me everything. I can't just turn my back on them completely." I stayed silent. I understood him truly. I did. But I also wasn't ready to forgive. "I'm not stopping them from coming," I said. "But I can't pretend nothing happened. I can't stand on that stage, see them smiling, and forget how much their words hurt." He nodded. No argument, no frustration, just sadness in his eyes. "I'll support you either way," he said quietly. "Just know, you're not the only one hurting." That hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on my pain, I forgot he might be hurting too, caught between loyalty to his son and love for his aging parents. He didn't take their side, but he also couldn't abandon them. That must have torn him apart. Graduation day arrived. I wore my cap and gown, tied my tie, and looked at myself in the mirror. My mom came in, smiling proudly, fixing the folds on my shoulders. My dad followed, beaming with quiet pride. I asked him, "Are they coming?" He nodded hesitantly. "They'll be in the back. They said they won't do anything if you don't want them to." I didn't respond. I wasn't angry anymore, just quietly sad. I walked across the stage, heard the applause, felt the moment swell. My mom cried. My dad clapped like I had just won the world. In the far back row, I saw my grandparents. They didn't wave. They didn't call out. They just sat silently, almost invisible in the crowd. After the ceremony, I stepped outside with my parents to take pictures. No one mentioned the grandparents, but as I was getting into the car, I saw them standing a few steps away. My grandfather's eyes were red. My grandmother held a small envelope in her hand. She walked forward, trembling. "We know you don't want to talk to us," she said gently, "but this is something we've wanted to give you. You don't have to read it now. Just maybe someday." I took the letter, said nothing, didn't smile, didn't reject them. I just walked away. That night, in my room, I opened the envelope. The handwriting was shaky. The words weren't perfect, but they were real. They apologized this time, not with vague statements or excuses. They didn't say, "If you were hurt." They said they were wrong. They admitted their bias, their mistake, and the damage it caused. They didn't mention the college fund. They didn't try to explain it away. It was just a letter full of regret and a hope that, maybe someday, I'd be willing to see them not as people who failed me, but as people trying to change. I don't know if I can forgive them yet, but for the first time, the pain in my heart started to feel a little less heavy. I used to think the pain would fade once I decided to let go, that if I stopped talking to my grandparents, avoided seeing their faces, I'd stop feeling hurt. But it didn't work that way. The pain didn't disappear, it just sat quietly inside, waiting for moments like graduation day, family photos, or the sad look in my dad's eyes to resurface, dull but heavy. After graduation, I found myself rereading the letter my grandparents had given me. At first, it was just curiosity. Then it became something else, a need to know if they were truly sincere. Their words didn't contain excuses or vague half-apologies. There was no, "if we hurt you" language. They admitted they were wrong. They expressed genuine regret. They didn't bring up the college fund or try to justify their actions. It was simply a letter filled with remorse and a fragile hope that maybe one day I'd be willing to forgive. Still, I wasn't ready. Forgiveness isn't something you just flip on like a light switch. But for the first time, I realized that clinging to my anger didn't punish them. It only continued to hurt me. My mum had always been the one who understood my feelings best. She never pushed me to forgive. She never guilted me into making peace. She just gently reminded me, every now and then, you have every right to be angry, but don't let your anger decide how you live your life. Dad was different. He grew quieter after everything. He didn't argue, didn't try to change my mind, but his support was visible in his actions. One day, I saw him quietly slip a family photo, one that included me and his parents, into his wallet. He didn't say anything when he noticed me watching, but the gesture stayed with me. It reminded me that, no matter what, he saw me as his son, entirely, without condition. And then one day, a letter came in the mail from my younger brother. He's only 11, but in that short note, he wrote, "I don't understand all the adult stuff, but I don't want you to be sad because of me. I love you. You'll always be my big brother." I cried reading that, truly cried. I had been so wrapped up in my own pain that I hadn't thought about the people who genuinely loved me, my mom, my dad, my little brother, and how the fracture in our extended family was affecting them too. That's when I started thinking about meeting my grandparents. Not to fix everything, not to pretend it didn't happen, but to give myself a chance to move forward, lighter, more grounded. Not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I called my grandfather one afternoon. His voice caught when I told him I was willing to meet. "I don't know if we can go back to the way things were," I said, "but I think I want to understand where you were coming from." He was quiet for a long time. "Thank you," he said, barely above a whisper. "Thank you for giving us this chance." The meeting wasn't magical. No dramatic hugs or tearful reunions. Just 3 people at a table, awkward silences, and halting conversations. They explained, in the most human way, that they had always felt unsure how to love me without the biological bond, unsure if it was their place. And in their uncertainty, they made the worst possible choice: exclusion. I didn't excuse them. But for the first time, I saw them not as villains, but as flawed people, limited by their own fears and ignorance. And me, once a boy carrying wounds, was beginning to grow into a man who could carry both pain and compassion. As I stood to leave, my grandmother asked, "Would it be okay if you called us Grandma and Grandpa again someday?" I didn't answer right away, but before I walked out the door, I turned back and said, "I'll try. I'm not promising, but I'll try." Now, when I look back, I don't feel angry anymore. I feel grateful. Not for what they did, but for what I learned through it. From the cracks in my trust, I discovered how to heal. I learned how to set boundaries without hardening my heart. I learned that love doesn't only come from blood, it comes from choice, from commitment, from those who stay, even when it's hard. And my dad, the man who chose me when he didn't have to, is still the clearest proof of that. I used to think that family love was automatic, that if you were raised in a family, called someone grandma, or grandpa, the love would naturally follow. But as I grew older, I realized that even family needs to be chosen, nurtured, and honored like any other relationship. My story isn't about money. It's not about whether a college fund was set up or not. It's a story about recognition, about the pain of being excluded, about the shattering moment when someone you believed loved you made it clear that you never truly belonged in the way you thought you did. It's the feeling of being unmasked, realizing that for all these years, you were standing outside a circle you thought you were in. Some wounds don't bleed, but they sit deep, in words that are never unsaid, in photos you're left out of, in celebrations where your presence feels optional. And if you never face those wounds, they linger quietly, shaping your view of the world and of yourself. I lived in that space for a while, pretending I was fine, trying not to let anyone know how much it hurt. But inside, I wasn't okay. I was angry. I felt like I was the outsider in my own story. Then I learned something important. Forgiveness isn't something you give because others deserve it. You give it because you deserve peace. I realized I didn't want to carry resentment forever. It was heavy, and I was tired. And while my grandparents hurt me, there were still people who never did. My mum, my dad, my little brother. They never turned away. I came to understand that real love doesn't come from shared DNA. It comes from consistency, from showing up, from staying when things get hard. My dad isn't my biological father, but he's the man who walked me into kindergarten, taught me to ride a bike, picked me up after school, and quietly supported every dream I had. His love never needed to be spoken, to be felt. It was just there, unwavering. As for my grandparents, I can't say I've fully forgiven them, but I'm no longer bitter. I see them as human beings, flawed, imperfect, and shaped by their own limitations. I don't need them to be perfect. I don't need them to be the grandparents I dreamed of. I just need them to be honest if they ever want to try again. I think about the future, when maybe someday I'll have children of my own. And I know what I want to pass down isn't just love, but the ability to forgive, the strength to stand for what's right without being hardened by it, and the wisdom to love beyond blood. Because I believe a true family isn't made by blood. It's made by choice, by commitment, by people who choose to stay, not because they have to, but because they want to. I was once a child left behind by a father I never knew. I grew up afraid that I'd always be different. But now I know I get to rewrite that story. No one else defines me, only I do. And today, I choose to live with an open heart. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm strong enough not to let pain shape me forever. If you're reading this and you've ever felt left out, unwanted, or like you weren't enough, let me tell you something. You're not alone. Real love often comes from unexpected places. And you have the right to choose who gets to be your family. Family isn't just where you come from. It's the people who stay, the people who love you, who accept you even when it's hard, even when you don't belong by blood. And if you're still in the process of healing, be patient with yourself. Healing isn't a destination, it's a journey, one step at a time, through tears, with courage, and sometimes with nothing but a small flicker of hope that things can still get better. I'm not perfect. My family isn't perfect. But I know I'm moving forward, and that, to me, is everything. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story today. I know everyone carries their own wounds, and if this story touched you in any way, I'm truly grateful to have shared these few moments with you. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so I can continue spreading honest, heartfelt, and healing stories. See you in the next video. Until then, stay strong and know that you are deeply loved.